Hey, so I'm gonna do story time. I think that it really tracks and adds to everything. I've told this story in like bits and pieces, and it's my own personal journey, and so it all intertwines into a lot of the things that I teach and talk about, right? And so I want to also just preface this by saying, like, I understand the struggle. I understand the realities of the real world. I understand reality of reality. Okay, I would preface that because when I tell my story time, I'm aware that what I have done, what I believe is not for everybody. In fact, most of the time I tell people really think about things before you do what I did, because I was the fool, very very much the fool in the tarot. I jumped off the cliff. I keep jumping off the cliffs, and that's just kind of the person I am. And that doesn't mean if you don't jump off the cliff you're not a brave person, or anything like that. Everyone has their own journey, and so that's like really important to preface, like, just as the foundation for this fucking conversation. I want people to understand, like, I'm not necessarily telling people to do this. This is what I did, and this is what I continue to do, and this is what I think if more people did, the more change would happen. But I understand it is a huge ask, and I don't want to be insensitive to people and their situations. So with that disclaimer, let's get going. Okay, so I don't think materialism and consumerism is actually a bad thing. I don't think anything is bad or good. I think it's your relationship to it. I do think that it is easy for humans, especially, I mean, there's so much psychology that goes into marketing and stuff. Like, this is not an easy, it's not an easy mountain to climb. But you have to develop a healthy, Jesus, Valus, he's chewing his bone. You have to develop a healthy relationship with materialism and consumerism, because we are in a material world, and in a material world, you consume. That is just like a natural fact and a natural order of things. And I think a lot of the guilt and shame in the rhetoric that's been going around, I think that can actually be more harmful than it can be beneficial. And that's because it expresses and condones a suppression of the shadow, in a sense. And I know that this is a completely nuanced take, and that's why I want to be delicate in how I express it, even though it's probably a multi-series conversation. So balancing your relationship to consumerism, releasing the guilt and shame you have about buying things for yourself. Now, there are people who frivolously spend, and that's completely different. And that doesn't mean you can't buy things you don't need. I firmly believe that you can buy things that you don't need for survival, as long as it has like an intentional sentimental value. I think meaning behind purchases and your relationships to spending money is key with all of this, and it's easier said than done. I don't want to sound too woo-woo about everything, because I do believe that we're Capricorn season, right? You're a Capricorn, there is a balance between give and take and spending and saving, and that is a really fine line, and it all goes down into your paradigms and your relationships with money. So for example, I had a really hard time. I haven't bought myself stuff. This is a video from a long time ago. I posted a video because people are talking shit about how I can't be a certain way because, like, I look a certain way. And I was like, I'm wearing my husband's clothes. Like, this is my husband's right now. Everything I'm wearing is my husband's. 2020 hit. Life was really hard for a lot of people. I wasn't the only one who experienced this. But to summarize quickly without getting into that whole long-winded thing is I hit some really hard times in my life. I built myself up to a certain level. COVID wiped it out for a lot of people who finally built themselves up, right? And that was a huge natural disaster that did whatever, that was the flood. That could be an example of the start of a flood, of like the Noah myth, like just a cataclysm that promotes change. And so I met my husband, and he's taken really good care of me for the last, it's going on 6 years, married 4 years here in January. He's taken really good care of me, and part of that is he went through his clothes. He has a lot of clothes. He is a hoarder with clothes. He loves shopping, and he buys clothes that last, for one, but also like this is some European shirt. He has a whole story behind it. stuff I don't know about. But anyway, all of that is to say he went through all of his clothes and he gave me a bunch of his stuff, so I could not worry about trying to fit into certain things. Like my weight was fluctuating, things weren't fitting, I was changing careers. Like I was just in this I've been for a very long time in this like in between phase. And so I posted a video and I was like, just because I can't afford right now, just because in this moment I'm not able to afford to present myself the way that I want to present myself, doesn't mean I'm not who I am. And that is a deep relationship to materialism, right? And people's judgments on superficial levels. And that's why you get a lot of people who are house poor, car poor, clothing poor, like all of this stuff. They have all of these brands, they have all these things, and that's not a healthy relationship with money and appearance or self-expression. That does not mean you cannot buy luxurious, fancy things if you genuinely love it. I love Doc Martens. I love Steve Madden. I love Guess. Those can be expensive brands, depending on what you get. There are high-end brands that I really, really like, and there are high-end brands that are worth the money. Most of it isn't. That's what you have. You find out like Nike and all this stuff, like it's really not that, especially when you look at like clothing material. So that's like, you have to kind of decipher all of those, what's the fucking word? I guess tricks to capitalism, right? And you figure out brands that are actually worth supporting. And it's okay. There are reasons why we have the brands that we were conditioned to believe in. At some point, most brands start off with like a really good vision. They usually get corrupt with money, right? So that's a huge thing. But anyway, the whole point of all of this, if I can remember, is, I was feeling guilty. I was feeling guilty about, like, I got some extra money and that I could save it. I could do what I've been doing, which is invest every dime I have into my business and not take care of myself, or I could take care of myself. And so I decided for the first time in like, let's see, in 6 years, 6 to 9 years, I haven't had like a shopping spree in like 8 years or something like that for myself. But so I decided to use that money and buy myself some like real clothing that I needed, not just like single pieces that I like would find at vintage resellers or this or that or whatever, like an actual haul of like leggings and undershirts and all of the things to like accessorize some of the dresses that I have. And I got earrings again. I got a new belly button ring. Like I just did little things to take care of myself, and that could be considered a frivolous spending habit. It's not. There's so much intention behind why I bought what I bought, and I haven't bought myself that in a while. And this idea that I should feel guilty about spending money and consuming because I need to take care of myself, that is the dark side of this movement of anti-capitalism and anti-materialism or consumerism. There's a healthy way to consume, and if you redirect your spending as best as you can into these other areas, that will shift the culture. So that's like one way that you can heal it, and this is already getting longer than I anticipated because it's not even my main point. Listen, these are just like little things that you can do to rebel against materialism, consumerism, capitalism, and all of the above. I don't think that getting rid of the free market is the solution. I know a lot of people do. I don't. I think it's creating a healthier free market and teaching discipline around freedom. And that includes setting boundaries with large corporations, all right? There's nothing wrong with the free market and getting as big as you possibly can until you are hoarding wealth and resources, right? That's when it becomes a problem. That is when it becomes more of a dictatorship, a monopoly, etc. It's no longer a free market because that gets in a whole lot of other things that I kind of don't want to get to, and I'm at 9 minutes. So I'm going to go do a part 2 and really dive into one of my main points about this. My main point is when you're talking about devoting to rest, life, reading, and leisure within like bills and the way society is. So I'm going to move on to that in this next video.